Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find ways to support the channel, my other social media, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back in another video. We're doing a first thoughts today. This first thoughts is on Aurelia, the law above. I know what you're thinking, Boros commander that cares about combat. Nothing really new there, but it cares about your opponent's combat too, which is pretty neat in my opinion. Before I hop into this video though, check out my shirt. This shirt, very, very cool. Into the AM. Check the link in the description of this video. You'll find my affiliate link to Into the AM. You'll get 10% off anything you buy through there. They got some really cool stuff. I really like this shirt, so definitely check them out. So let's hop into this. Aurelia, the law above. The categories I'll be talking about today are, first, goad. Ways to make it so your opponents are forced to attack with their creatures because making them attack will trigger Aurelia. Then we have ways to give your opponents creatures. They're going to need creatures to attack with. Then after that, we have ways to protect yourself from being attacked, since you don't want to be attacked and your opponents are going to have a lot of extra creatures lying around. You're not going to be able to goad all of them. You're going to be able to force all of them to attack very often, but not necessarily goad. So you're going to want to have ways to make it so your opponents don't attack you. Then we have ways to make it so your opponents take more damage when they're hit. Some creatures that work really well when you're attacking with them consistently. Ways to give yourself additional combats, because more combats means more triggers. And then finally, some one-off cards. We got a bunch of one-off cards. So we're going to jump on into this, starting off with ways you can goad your opponent's creatures. The first card I want to talk about is Agitator Ant. This card makes it so your opponent's creatures get bigger and bigger. They'll deal more damage. However, they're goaded, so you don't have to worry about them hitting you. You have Baloth, Bloodthirsty Blade, which is a lot of fun to be able to interact with your opponents. Bothersome Quasite, Day of the Moon, Disrupt Decorum, Geode Rager, Landfall Goad, seems great. Grenzo, Kumano Battle Armor, which is nice because it also makes it so your creatures are harder to block if you equip it. Laser Screwdriver, just does a ton of things including goad. Popular Entertainer, Sontaran General, Spectacular Showdown, Taunt from the Rampart, The Sound of Drums, and Vengeful Ancestor. Vengeful Ancestor is really nice because it has that additional trigger on it. Death Kiss is another way to goad. It's a one-off effect. It's not the best way to goad, but it will consistently make it so your opponents take more damage, which is really nice. Similarly, Warmonger will make it so your opponents are taking more damage from your other opponents attacking them. There's also the Impetus Cycle. That works pretty well to force your opponent's creatures to attack and not you. And Vows. Vows just make it so if your opponents attack with that creature, they're going to have a big buff, but they also can't attack you. But unfortunately, the Vows don't force the attack. Moving on, we're going to talk about ways you can give your opponents additional creatures, because the more creatures they have, the more creatures you can force to attack and the more triggers you're going to be able to get. So, some ways you can give your opponent's creatures include cards like Life of the Party, which gives goaded creatures, which is nice. Slicer and Assault Suit, kind of giving your opponent's creatures, even though it's only temporary. However, it forces them to attack with an additional creature. The War Games, Combat Calligrapher, Ox Drover, Goblin Spymaster, that one's awesome in this deck. Varchild, Hunted Dragon, Rite of the Raging Storm, seems like a great include. A Crow and Horse, Forbidden Orchard, giving your opponent's creatures on a land that can tap for either your two colors, perfect. Benevolent Offering, Aganjo Uprising, I never thought I'd see this card usable in a deck, and it doesn't seem bad here. And Karn the Betrayer, seems like a cool include for this deck, pretty neat card. Now let's talk about ways to protect yourself. Your opponent's going to be mad at you, your creature's going to have to attack for one reason or another. You don't want to be the one who gets hit. Some ways you can prevent that damage include cards like Nils, Archon of Absolution, Baird, Blazing Archon, Ghostly Prison, Glacial Chasm, which I really love, Orzhov Advocist. It grows your opponent's creatures and prevents them from attacking you. Seems great. Promise of Loyalty, Sphere of Safety, Windborn Muse, Elish Norn, Crawl Space, Champions of Minas Tirith, and Archangel of Tides. Boros likes dealing damage, so making it so your opponents take more damage seems good for Boros. Some ways you can increase that amount of damage that your opponents are taking from all these attacks include cards like Fiendish Duo, Furnace of Wrath, Gisela, Gratuitous Violence, City on Fire, and Fiery Emancipation. You're also going to be doing a lot of attacking with this deck because Aurelia triggers whenever anybody attacks with 3 or more creatures. So, you're going to want to load your deck up with creatures that have benefits when they attack. Their opponents are probably not going to have that many blockers because they're being forced to attack. So, you're going to run a bunch of these creatures and get extra attack triggers and reap the benefits. Some of those creatures include Adeline, Anim, Avenging Hunt Bonder, Itali, Frontline Medic, which can protect your stuff if you need to, Goldspan Dragon, make some treasures, Guardian Scale Lord along with Sun Titan, Guahir, Inti, Krenko, can make a bunch of tokens, Lelia for card advantage, Mezio Mugger, similar, Myrel, just very powerful card, Odric, so you can control whatever blockers your opponents may have, Smuggler's Copter, Looter Scooter, good card selection engine there, and Sophina. The last main category I want to talk about before we get to all the one-off cards, and there's a decent amount of one-off cards, is extra combats, because more combats means more triggers and more damage and Boros happy. So, some additional combat cards include the other Aurelia, Bloodthirster, Karlov, Morag, Portraiser, Scourge of the Throne, Combat Celebrant. All of these ones specifically are creatures that attack, so they're even better in this deck because they'll help with triggering Aurelia. You also have Waves of Aggression, which seems pretty good in this deck, and Aggravated Assault. Lastly, let's talk about the one-off cards. We got a bunch of one-off cards I want to mention. First, we have Grafted Exoskeleton and Basilisk Collar for that second trigger on Aurelia whenever 5 or more creatures attack. It lets you infect them out and gain a lot of life off lifelink. Both those and other cards that do similar things seem good. Grafted Exoskeleton, I believe, is the only card that can give Aurelia infect, unfortunately, in these colors. But there's a few other ways to give lifelink if you're looking to do that. Firemane Commando can net you additional card draw, which seems pretty nice. Angel's Trumpet in Total War, forcing your opponents to not have blockers and attack with everything. Similarly, you have Avatar of Slaughter, War's Toll, Bassandra, Fumiko, Warmonger, Hellkite, and Grand Melee. All those auto-includes in this deck, making your opponents attack. Since your opponent's creatures are all going to be tapped because they were attacking, cards like A Crow in War and Sunblast Angel can be fun board wipes to throw into this deck. Light Minefield and Power Stone Minefield, although it removes potential attackers, they could be interesting includes for stabilizing the board state. There's a handful of curses that seem really good in this deck because you can curse your opponents and whenever they get attacked, something happens that's beneficial for you, like Curse of Hospitality, Curse of Opulence, and Curse of Vitality. Cards like Duelist Heritage and Frenzied Saddle Brute can be a lot of fun in decks that force your opponents to attack every combat. And finally, Rabble Rousing. Rabble Rousing can create a bunch of token creatures for you to help get additional triggers in future turns off Aurelia, while also having blockers and just the card advantage of Hideaway. That is everything I have for Aurelia, the Law Above. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment. Let me know if there's any cards that you're going to be putting into the Aurelia deck that I didn't mention, or if there's any cards I did mention that you didn't think about before and you are now going to put into your deck. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody.